What's up, motherfuckers? Absolutely loving the price action I'm seeing right now on both SPY and AMC. It looks perfect. Everything looks great. Tracking on the macro looks great. Tracking on the micro looks fantastic as well. Jumping into the video, starting with the macro perspective as always on AMC. Your January and June squeeze equivalents of the original macro on AMC here. The green and yellow dots here. The equivalents here and here. The pullback from the January, get the June. Pullback from the January, get the June. The V-shape, and then your macro break in this blue box here. From that point, you get into the descending wedge on both sides, the green, red, and blue, and then your flat portion, 1, 2, and 3 bottoms on both sides. Your breakout and retest iteration, which is the end of the macro, which is what we're in right now. There's also a possibility that we are at the third bottom right here, the third bottom, which is the lower low, the lowest low of the flat portion, and all-time lows of the previous macro. Again, that's how the previous macro ended, was with all-time lows on AMC, followed by a squeeze, which is exactly how we're setting up again. Keep in mind, both macros, the descending wedges, were heading for zero, so this looks absolutely perfect to me. This white line down here being zero, so the macro looks great as always. Now, getting into the breakout, once again, I'm not doing the halts today. I think everyone's seen that by now. This is the macro pattern of AMC, the descending wedge. Multiple rejections throughout this. Every time we got to run up towards the upper resistance of the wedge here. So right here, right here, right here, halted every single time. And then the support on the bottom recently broke out, and now in the middle of the retest, holding up very, very nicely here. The first poke through, the breakout move, and now retesting twice here and holding up. This looks absolutely perfect. Not going to get into the halts today. But just moving on, so zooming into this a little bit more now. Here's the final iteration of AMC. That bilateral triangle we were trading in for a year. I don't have the trend line shown here. But that bilateral triangle here actually broke us out of the macro, being the descending wedge in the white lines here. The breakout move, and then from the breakout move, you have this descending trend here of the retest, which was holding us down to the retest here. So the previous resistance of AMC now acting as support. Here was that descending trend of the retest. One rejection here on the breakout, another rejection here, third one right here, fourth one right here. And on Monday, we actually broke out of this trend, and all week we've just been seeing upside, higher highs and higher lows. So this looks great. So not only holding the previous resistance as support, but breaking the retest, the resistance of the retest here. This looks absolutely perfect. And moving on one more time. I don't know why I'm showing the exact same thing again, but I am. This is just zoomed in on the 30-minute now. Same story here, your breakout, rejection, 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 and then here was the first test on the wedge, actually broke below it, fighting for the wedge again, for the breakout. The 17% move off that we saw, followed by another rejection off of this descending trend here, brought us back down to the wedge again, and we broke out of this on Monday. The breakout, the retest, and all week we've just been seeing a slow climb. Today actually up 10% pre-market. Mentioned in my video yesterday, more than likely today would be red. It was red. Probably the most fun you could have on a red day, being up 10% first thing in the morning. And the pullback now is according to tracking, which it's tracking exactly how it should. This looks great. Okay, so getting into the retest now. And what we're looking at here, once again, so everyone's on the same page, is this yellow square here, the breakout and retest of the previous macro, the descending wedge here. This yellow square compared to this one right here, the breakout and retest of the current. So I've covered this numerous times already. The move is pretty much the same here, starting with a gap up and a gap up on this side as well, which is the breakout move. You get this crazy ass wick on a high volume red candle, and then the same thing here, this crazy ass wick on a high volume red candle. The rest of the move to the top on both sides, a pullback to the red horizontal line, stair step to the blue horizontal line, the uptrend forming higher lows here, uptrend forming higher lows, the break below the uptrend, and the rejection off leading to a gap down, and then over here the same thing. Breaking below that trend, coming back up to reject it, and then gapping down. Again, we gap down much lower. We were looking for a gap down to this white line here. Not going to be going over the reasons today. I think I've covered that enough. But from the gap down, the movement is pretty much perfect here. Starting with the gap down, you have this uptrend, higher highs and higher lows here. And over here, same thing, the uptrend, higher highs and higher lows, before you get a downtrend to a lower low, which is what we're going through right now. And just keep in mind that this lower low right here is the retest of the previous macro wedge. The descending wedge of the previous macro, this is the confirmation of the retest right here. Your bottom, and then you get this very slow, choppy uptrend here, followed by the actual confirmation move, which is right here, followed by a gap up, which is your macro break, and a straight line to your squeeze. Now, we got the rest of the downtrend, and I'm almost positive the bottom's in now. The reason I'm saying that is because we held up the retest on the macro wedge, and we broke the descending trend line, the descending resistance of the retest on Monday, and we are now trending upward. So it looks like the bottom's in, and we are in the middle of this slow, choppy uptrend here, which is what we're going through right now, pretty much all week from Monday to today, looking for this confirmation move right here, which again, this confirmation move should be taking us higher than the top of the breakout, which is roughly $62, and it's actually even higher than that with extended hours. I think it's around $80. So that's the confirmation move that we're looking for, is a move over $80. And now getting into the actual uptrend itself, so just zooming in even more now, what we're going to be looking at, now assuming the bottom is in, because we confirmed the retest of the macro wedge, and we broke the descending trend line, the descending resistance of the retest. So assuming the bottom is in, you get this very slow, choppy uptrend right here. And that is what we're going through right now, a very slow, choppy uptrend. So just zooming in and showing you how well this is tracked so far. So everything is labeled here. I have horizontal lines running across, separating each range of price action. The white line here is obviously the uptrend, as you see it here. And then the horizontal lines running across, separating the ranges of price action here. So your bottom right here, this is the retest and the final retest of the current macro. You get this pop, and then the sideways price action right at this yellow horizontal line. And right here, same thing, the pop and this sideways price action right at this yellow horizontal line. And then you get the move up to the next range, which is the white horizontal line that you're seeing here. You got to move up, and then you get this double bottom breaking below the yellow line on both of these wicks here. So one there and one there, pretty much coming down to the previous range right here. And over here, same thing. The first one right here and the second one, slightly higher than a double bottom, but still tracking nonetheless. It's never going to be perfect, but it will be very similar. So pretty much got what we were looking for there. And then from there, you get the move up into the next range, break above that. This red line now, you break above that, pull back to the white, break above that, pull back to the white, and then you get the rest of this move up. This triangle type move that you're seeing here, which is exactly what you're seeing here. This blue line here is what we're looking to break now. So the high of the day today, pre-market, 930, 931, something like that, is what we're going to be looking for to break. So we got the rest of the move up, and the pullback, which bounces you right on the red line, as you see here, which is running right through the previous range here, forming a higher low than the previous range, and meeting the trend line of the uptrend here. So tomorrow, if this is the correct tracking here, what we should be seeing is a bounce off and then relatively flat. And I'm assuming what this would look like is some green early on in the day, probably to the middle of this range, somewhere around 8.5 to 8.80, and then a flag probably from there, a downtrend from the high of the day, just chopping sideways in this range right here. And then going into next week, we would be getting these boom candles here. So that's what we're looking for going forward. Again, once you get these boom candles here, what you're looking at is this right here, the confirmation move. So once this slow, choppy uptrend concludes, it's followed by some boom candles, your confirmation move. That's what we're looking for next, once the uptrend is finished playing out. All right, so that is if we are in the breakout retest iteration, and what we're going to be looking at now is the other perspective where we would have just been coming down to our third bottom, which would be right here. the third bottom, the lower low, and the all-time low of AMC. The other possible scenario is that's what we're doing right now. Either scenario, it doesn't make a difference. The price action going forward is going to look relatively similar. Pretty much the same thing. I'll cover that as well. But just looking at the flat portion now, and I covered this yesterday. This is the flat portion of the previous cycle, 2021 cycle on the left and current cycle on the right. So dropping into the flat portion now to your first bottom, you have this chop down here, followed by a gap up. So your first bottom, very choppy when you get to it, followed by a gap up. And on the current cycle, same thing. The drop to the flat, the chop down here, gapping up, and then you get this double peak move, the triangle type move here, and then same thing right here, this double peak move that you're seeing here, which takes you to your second bottom. Again, coming down to your second bottom, you get this move in the yellow, rejecting the yellow horizontal line, and then coming back up to reject it. And then over here, same thing. Rejecting the horizontal line in yellow, and then coming back up to reject it, which takes you to your second bottom on both sides, which is a higher low than the first on the daily on both cycles. So the previous and the new one, higher low on the second bottom on the daily, which you gap up from there, and then you have 3 pokes above the yellow horizontal line. Once again, for your tri-peak, 1, 2, 3, very dragged out here, but still got the third peak nonetheless, and a very exaggerated move at that. So from the third peak, again rejecting this yellow horizontal line, as you see over here, which takes you to your third bottom on both sides. And the third bottom is the lowest low in this range, and it's the all-time low of AMC. So the previous macro, all-time low of AMC, your third bottom. From there, it's uptrend and squeeze. And if we're looking at it from this perspective, same story. Your lower low that we were looking for the whole time, by the way, this whole time looking for a lower low. And we got it, and also an all-time low, which is how the previous macro concluded as well, with an all-time low followed by a squeeze. Again, the date range here, from the beginning of the flat portion to your third bottom in the previous cycle, 320 days, and in the current, from the beginning of that to your third bottom, 284 days. So pretty much one-to-one, actually tracking slightly faster in the current macro, which shouldn't be a surprise because the current macro is tracking faster in general. The previous macro from 2013 to 2021, so 8 years there. Current macro 2021 until 2023, roughly 2 years, pushing 3 years now, but we're at the end of the macro regardless. So this is playing out twice as fast, more or less, on a macro level. So that looks very good. Now, looking at this, coming down to your third bottom here, which is the lower low and all-time low. When you do come down to that bottom, you have a channel here, an ascending channel, which takes you to the breakout move, and then your macro break, which is the gap up over the yellow line, which is what we're looking for. And now that we have bottomed, we have an ascending channel here. So getting into that, I mentioned this yesterday, and here it is. So you have this move in the green, which is pretty much right on top of the channel on both sides, the drop down to your bottom, the drop down to your bottom, and then the uptrend that you have in this channel. And the final poke through here is January 15th, and then the pullback, and this is why I was calling for a pullback today, assuming that this was the top of the move yesterday, the top of the channel. I was expecting to pull back here and be red today. Instead, what happened was we got even more upside, but then we got the pullback that I was looking for. Again, this is why I said yesterday that more than likely today would be red, because I was expecting the pullback from the top of the move from January 15th. Which brings you all the way back down to support, and then you bounce up to the middle of the range, and we have not done that yet. So it's very possible tomorrow we get a bounce back up to the middle of the range, and then get some kind of flag. So it would look like a bounce up to here, mid $8 range, and then flagging here, going into the weekend, and then next week looking for a big move to the upside. And I covered this before, but the other perspective, where this is the breakout retest iteration, wants to load, we're pretty much looking for the same thing, a bounce up to the middle of the range, and then flat or a flag, some kind of descending pattern or flat pattern here right in the middle of the range going into the weekend. So either perspective, and again, this is just the overall outlook on this, either perspective, whether we're hitting our third bottom, hit the third bottom already because the bottom's in now, whether we just hit the third bottom and we are now in this uptrend here, or we are retesting. And again, the retest would be in, and we'd be in the uptrend already now. the slow choppy uptrend. The movement going forward is the same. So once you finish the slow choppy uptrend, you get this move here, this double top move. And once you finish the uptrend here, you get this move, the double top move here. And actually, this move that you're looking at right here, is this move right here. Just zoomed in on the micro. This is on a 5-minute chart, and this is on a 1 hour. This move right here is actually this move right here. That's what you're looking at. So either perspective, we're looking for the same price action. Once we do get this move, you're looking for a gap up and your macro break straight line into the squeeze. Last thing before I end the video, not trying to drag this out, but I'm going to cover this again. I'm going to continue to touch on this because I'm just going to be waiting for OBV to break all-time highs and just, you know, watching the volume profile on a daily basis. So here's the macro of AMC from IPO, and I'll cover this again. First of all, the volume that we're seeing right now is matching the volume that we saw for the January squeeze and June squeeze on AMC. So the volume that we're seeing right now at all-time lows is matching the volume that we saw at all-time highs. Volume is picking up again. I mentioned previously volume was very flat all the way through this, and towards the end of the macro it starts picking up into your squeeze, all-time high volume. Pull back for the retracement of the January squeeze that you see in the volume, another pump for June, and then from June, the current macro, descending volume, decreasing volume all the way through this, lower and lower peaks in the volume until the end of the macro, again, where volume is picking up, and already at the levels that we saw in January and June of 2021. Again, what this is telling me that the volume on the squeeze is going to be absurd. And getting into the OBV now. Although volume is decreasing all the way throughout the macro here, the green volume is outweighing the red. Someone make it make sense. So from all-time highs of AMC from $400 all the way down to $7, nothing but lower highs and lower lows here all the way down. The green volume is outweighing the red. Every green spike that you see here is higher than the red volume. All throughout this, there's a match right there, I guess, but all throughout this is the weekly chart, green volume has outweighed the red all the way through the macro here, all the way until the end. Green volume is outweighing the red, which is why OBV is still sitting near all-time highs, even though we've seen nothing but downtrend from June 2021. OBV has been pretty much flat up here at all-time high levels, this green dashed line being all-time high OBV. And while we are retesting the breakout, if you want to say it's that scenario, whether we're hitting the third bottom, volume has started picking up again, and at the same exact time, OBV has broke the descending trend that you see here on the weekly and actually retested twice on it and bounced even higher today, slightly higher than it was yesterday. And at the same exact time, RSI on the weekly is oversold, sitting at about 28. So this looks absolutely perfect on a macro scale. Again, I mentioned this yesterday. Whether you're looking at a micro chart on a 5-minute, whether you're looking at a weekly chart, whatever, decreasing volume on a pullback is bullish. The green volume outweighing the red on that pullback is even more bullish, and increasing OBV on AMC has been an extremely strong indication of upside to come. And on the weekly, we have broken out and retested twice now and pretty much sitting right under all-time high OBV, while RSI is oversold on the weekly. So that is pretty much it for the video. I'm not expecting anything crazy tomorrow. Once again, I am expecting upside, but I'm not expecting anything crazy. Probably a pop somewhere to the mid $8 range, flagging from there, going into the weekend, sideways from there. And then next week looks very promising for upside. But we'll take it one day at a time. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one.